So let me start today with this one line. Thus let me live, unseen, unknown. Thus unlimited, let me die. Steal from the world, and not a stone tell where I lie. These are the spiritual souls. They just want to keep lying there, helping. They don't want recognition. They don't want anything because they know the divine has decided their fate. And here we have a beautiful soul living a journey, fought the trauma, fought the pain, and she's a legend. She's a legend in the spiritual space because the divine knows who she is. And today we introduce her to the world, Dina Fly. Welcome, Dina.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here and speak with you.
Thank you, Dina. We've been trying to do this podcast for almost over a month now,
Yes.
and there have been a couple of things. It means this is the right time, this
Hmm.
this this summer sunshine is the right time to be recording. She's sitting in New Jersey, I'm sitting in Calgary, and across those time zones, we finally decided that we needed to talk because what we needed to talk is of value to human, to value to mankind today. Dina has been doing a lot of work with the nature. So Dina, can you explain us in a little detail of your work in the spiritual space and how do you help people there?
Absolutely. So I have a mind, body, spirit wellness modality that I do spontaneously over the course of, well, 30 years really of healing from complex trauma stemming in my childhood and then some traumatic events in my adulthood that challenged me spiritually and emotionally and physically. And I realized that within nature, I found incredible inspiration for mind, body, spirit resilience, healing, connection. And so, from a spiritual standpoint, the more time that I spent in nature, and I took up photography, botanical photography, as part of my grieving, healing from grief in my 20s. The more time I spent examining nature very up close through my lens and looking at it through different perspectives, the more I realized that I was being drawn in a very spiritual way and connecting in a very profound way. And I just started doing all my yoga outside and meditating outside for hours at a time. And that energetic flow in nature really sparked something in me. So now I try and help people find that too for their bodies, minds, and spirits.
Wow. So whatever she got, whatever she created, she decided that she wanted to give it out. That's exactly what a spiritual being who has been guided, who has been channeled with different messages does. So tell us, how has grief reshaped your entire understanding of presence, both you with yourself, and the physical world around? So how key the grief was, and how did you deal with that grief in reshaping your entire being?
Grief was, for me, the catalyst of discovery, really, of mindfulness and awareness of myself within the space that I was in, primarily in nature, for many years before I had this huge catalyst of grief, which was the loss of my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, who was like a protector and a really safe space for me in my early 20s. I had been always spending a lot of time outside because I felt like that was a safe and comfortable place around nature. But I wasn't aware of the fact that I was doing that until I was bequeathed his camera after he died, and I started taking photographs of nature, just what inspired me in nature, you know. And I failed a photography course because my vision wasn't the teacher's vision. And I was just seeing things, so completely differently and uniquely and personally. But that's okay because it led to something much greater. And then I realized that I was being present in the moment in a very profound way and experiencing the exchange of love and energy and all of the wonderful things that nature holds in store for us when we remember we're part of it and we actually are nature. And that was a huge part of healing for grief for me. And I'm grateful for the grief teaching me and guiding me towards that kind of self-awareness. Because, like I said, I was able then to be mindful of that, incorporate that into my meditations and into practices that were genuinely part of my healing journey, and still are. But doing it from in a way that suddenly felt very, very accessible and meaningful to me. Whereas meditating inside is nice and I can get into kind of, that state. But being out in nature as I practice my wellness practices, uh, it brought a whole new dimension of connection and enrichment and purpose, really, I think, to what I was doing.
Wow.
So through grief, I learned the being, if that
Wow.
makes sense.
No, that's perfect. See, just when we were talking, you shared with me your the website and the professional work that you do in the spirituality space, and you call the portal the Whispering Wilds,
Mhm.
and which is www.whisperingwilds.com. People, you must need to go see this, visit this place. So, so what do the wilds are whispering? What is it the nature wants to tell the humanity today, the state of affairs today when we look at the material world outside? What do you think is the message that the wilds and the nature wants to give to the humans today through messengers and healers and nature spiritualists like you?
I think my experience with nature right now is that it misses us as much as we have a kind of, we're fighting it. A lot of us are sticking up for it, and a lot of us are invested in things that destroy it. Nature doesn't want to be at war with itself. It doesn't want to be at war with us because we're part of it. It misses us and it's holding space for us, which is the most important thing. I've told so many people, advise them to go hug a tree or touch nature in some way or observe wildlife as part of what they're processing emotionally and spiritually. And nobody has come back saying anything other than that was amazing, just looking purposefully and listening and feeling what nature had to say. And my true belief right now is that nature is calling us home. It isn't angry at us for what we're doing to the planet. And it is just saying, let's heal together because nature is traumatized. Humanity is massively traumatized. And the key is coming back together so we can meet and enrich each other, to borrow a phrase from Virginia Satir, um, meeting and enriching each other and reforming a community that we haven't had for a long time. So nature just wants us back. It's
So
over the breakup. It wants us back.
that's so very interesting because yesterday I got my daughter from the school and we were standing outside and we have a tree in the front yard and I both of us were just standing and hugging the tree. She's like, "Why are we hugging the tree? And why do you always hug a tree?" I said, "Because this is the best hug. Because when nature
Hmm.
hugs you back." So she's like, "That means when the wind blows, they say I love you." I said, "Yes, you've got to hear it." And it's a coincidence having this conversation today and you saying, "Hey, nature wants us back," you know,
Hmm.
and
It really does. I love that. And yeah, I mean, it's scientifically proven there's an exchange of energy between a tree and us when we're hugging it, but it goes even beyond that exchange of energy to just and a basic love of life and living things, and nature is self-preserving, so it wants to preserve us too.
beautiful. So the love that we feel when we go out in the outdoors is the nature hugging us, it giving us the love that we need, the flow of the water, the close, beautiful breezes that blow outside. So it's very benevolent expression of the nature when it looks up to us. Can you, because you're a nature person, you're an animalist, you work with the shamanic practices and the spirits over there. What happens to the nature? What it goes through when there are wildfires, when the nature itself sees it's going through that challenge? Is how do you relate it to the entire spiritual space with the animals there, with the wildfires happening there, breathing it down? So what happens? I mean, what is the kind of an emotion that's generated in that space?
Example, and one that I think of often because I've been in situations where, it's been raining ash on my house. I've been so close to wildfires. And it's terrible, so sad to watch it happen and to know the loss of life and how afraid the animals must be and the struggle that it causes. But nature also, while wildfires are much more prevalent due to climate change, they existed before we started messing things up. They're actually how nature regenerates and maintains a resilience. So a lot of the time, nature seems very callous even to itself. Natural disasters, we frame them within this idea that they're disasters. The fact is, it's not an emotional, there's no value or judgment behind it when it is a natural act. It's sometimes just ugly to us and scary and unfortunate to us. But nature doesn't necessarily attach emotion to something like that. Where nature's emotions become complicated is when we, as beings that have forgotten how to be natural, come in as, interlopers, really, and battlefields where many people have died. That energy seeps into the ground and seeps into the air, and traumas that are man-made are not necessarily understood by nature. So when nature's out there holding space for us, if we respond with a very unnatural sort of energy in return, that can be, I always give an example of people who like to try to pet the bison in Yellowstone. My son has a t-shirt that says, "Don't pet the fluffy cows." Don't do it because it's so dangerous. They don't understand your intent. And even though they're not malicious, they're going to get territorial and they're going to hurt you because
True.
they don't think you're doing it nicely. So it's hard to assign a specific emotion or a value judgment within our human framework to things that happen in nature that seem less than benevolent. I think you mentioned the shamanic work. The only thing that I would say is different about that is you can, when you are vulnerable and journeying, particularly in this middle realm, you can encounter spirits that just want to mess with you. They aren't necessarily like trees or the things that we would consider like trolls or certain types of elves or whatever,
Yeah.
that are very tricksters and not
Hmm.
necessarily happy that we are there. But in a practical sense, going outside with just not journeying, just going outside in our bodies with our senses and nature is a much more neutral, if not positive, force, but it's a force. So that also means it can be unpredictable.
Lovely. I think when you say that, it brings out a very strong message to everybody that everything that breathes has its own nature, has its own ways to communicate, and we as humans have a very limited belief system because we want everything to respond the way we do. So we have to respect the way the nature responds, the animals behave. Probably the way you mentioned about the bison, it has a nature. Similarly, in our teachings, our guru generally mentions, the human is a human. Human has a god. Even the animal has a god inside. But if there is an animal in rage, you will not go stand in front of the animal. There is god
Yes.
inside that animal, but you have to understand the nature of that animal. So it's
Hmm.
it's it's your sensibility and your wisdom to get out of the way of that animal, because everybody has their own ways to react to certain things. So, have you ever faced a challenge working outdoors? Any challenging situations where you felt that you needed to uh, create a controlled practice outside, where nature was trying to give you a specific message, or there was something being channeled in a space? Did you receive something like that?
I have. And when you work with nature a lot and when you're out in nature a lot, it's kind of inevitable that it's going to happen, that you're either going to have your plans disrupted by a sudden storm or something. For me, it's raptors in general, because we have eagles, hawks, and falcons, but particularly the hawks that I have here are very bold and not in the least bit afraid of me. Not that I really want them to be. The problem is that I belong to a large family of crows, and
Wow.
they are very, very, very protective. Yeah, we've got crows, then they adopted a different kind of crow, and then they adopted two ravens, and they adopted me. For 5 years, we've been living in this on this property in this little
Wow.
mixed family,
Wow.
but they are very, very protective and defend, and hawks are a predator.
Yeah.
So often I will come out, especially on Fridays, which is quite appropriate because hawks are associated with Freya, who's the goddess that Friday was named after, or alternatively Frigg, who has a falcon cloak. So I always find that there's a hawk out on Fridays when I'm out just trying to be peaceful and have a moment. And then the hawk will show up and it's like, here come the crows. And then there's this big fight and the mobbing and the noise, and it just goes on and on across the lake. They chase them back and forth. And it's almost like it's an annoyance for me at times. 'Cause I'm like, why won't you just leave us alone? And then it's the hawk's nature. And he's not even hunting so much as just being curious about what's going on here. And, I'm out in nature and maybe he's interested. Sometimes he'll talk to me from the forest and we actually talk back and forth. And I eventually just got to the point where I was like, I'm making peace with you. I don't like that you come and hunt on my property, so maybe do less of that. But you're a beautiful animal and you have every right to exist here. And some days it's going to mess up my plans, but there's a reason that you've shown up, and maybe I'll learn something if I just look at you and listen to you and, what the natural happens. So again, there's no value judgment there in nature. It's just me as a human being like, it's Friday and I've got to watch a big aerial battle over my house when I'm trying to go do something peaceful or take, my photography or whatever.
Lovely. you know, uh, Listening to you sounds so beautiful because, where we are talking about these political fights, we're talking of listening to all these big things happening
Mhm.
around. Here we're talking about a fight of ravens and a hawk and, working on it. Who owns the human? Who, this is our human, this is our human. You know, isn't it so beautiful? We're talking about things which actually ground us, actually, and
Yeah.
nobody wants to talk about these things because this doesn't get money. So that gets me to the next question. In this world of money, in this world of material cravings, obsession, material doings and wrongdoings, where today a father is not scared of doing things to his son, a daughter is not afraid of hurting her mother for money. How do you manage to run or do your wellness or healing processes, you know managing the entire material world? And how do you, because listening to your talks, it seems that the innocence is at the core of everything that you do. So how do you manage with so much of innocence in this wild world?
I just remain unapologetically me. I stay very authentic and I try really hard not to let myself become too afraid or too jaded or too distracted from the most important things. Um, and that is really, yeah, it's how I stay me. And I put myself out there very genuinely. And I know that not everyone is going to like what I say, and not everyone is going to, vibe with me. And that's okay because not everyone is my person, and I am not everybody's person. We all have our own tribes. So not just conforming to what I think people want to hear or experience, and just authentically showing up and being myself. That's the key to doing business with integrity, particularly in the wellness and spiritual space, being real. And focusing less on money as the a main objective, as focusing on my main objective being feeling satisfied, living my purpose, living with meaning, and having the time and space that I need in life to enjoy life as well. Because I think the more obsessed with money we become, and we were talking about this earlier, the harder it is to just enjoy life. We have this hedonistic adaptation where we just want more and more and more and more because we get desensitized to the thing that
Yes.
we think we
Yes.
want. So yeah, that's really just making sure my priorities are my the what feels good and what drives me from a spiritual and an ethical perspective and allows me to live fully.
No, that's
And
lovely.
me.
That sounds like a complete surrender. And
Yes.
uh, the one word I loved there was being myself, unapologetically being myself. And that took me. That's where you took me. So one message that you very strongly feel that you need, if you could become the light yourself and whisper something into everybody's ears on this planet, what would be that one magic word or the message or one line which you would actually want to give to every being on this planet as a message from the divine, because you do hold so much of divine light in you. So one message which you want everybody to hear, everybody to know, and everybody to live grounded with, what would be that one message?
I think one of the most important things we can learn, and it's not going to sound directly connected to nature, but it is essential to life, is that nothing is linear. So if you are not where you think you should be right now, keep going. Nature is an interconnected web of things we often don't see that all comes together, to make a tree. It takes so many other things that we have no idea of unless we start really digging. Nothing is linear. Growth is not linear. Careers aren't linear. Grief isn't linear. Embrace the fact that everything is multidimensional. A lot of things are going to happen at once in a way that feels chaotic, but also exactly as it's meant to be. So just give yourself the grace to not expect everything to be smooth or a straight line.
So that gives us a very beautiful thought that we need to stay with, is that we are looking at the time when life needs to hold us to the spaces where we need to know that it's a multidimensional universe. Everything could be happening in different ways. One of the healers told me last month, he says, Richa, there is nothing called as time. And
Mm,
it just hit me so hard because when we look at ourselves, everything is time bound, everything is time, everything is a schedule, everything is organized. She's like, time is a myth. And the more we start understanding it rather than listening to this, that, the moment you start understanding that your karma, your doing is important and time will embrace itself. So that hit me quite hard because we've been running with the watch. The watch has been everything to do
oh,
with, and
yeah.
that's exactly what you bring up today. That one message for the humanity, that everything is multidimensional. There's nothing linear. There's just not one perspective of anything. There are multiple perspectives, and what you are a guru to me. You are somebody who's taught me so many things about nature today. So one message that you would want me to listen to today, one message for for the listeners today, what it would be right here, right now, that one message that the light brings to you to give it to us.
Really, that nature, stepping outside, even just for a breath of fresh air, wherever you are. Nature doesn't have to be, a jungle. It can be a city with a pigeon. That's just really determined. I think that the spirit, the light, the love in the world wants you to know that you have a home, you have a place that you belong, and you always have. So no matter what you're feeling, you can step outside, take a breath of fresh air, and know that you're grounded.
So Dina is leaving us with one of the most beautiful thoughts, that for all those who think They don't have a home. For all those who feel they have nowhere to go, just step outside and breathe these five elements, the ether itself sitting out there, this water flowing, the wind breezing, the ground that you stand on, the beautiful leaves out there, the sky over there, the earth below. These are your home. And if these are your home and the world is your playground, then look up and smile and be a maverick, the free spirit that we have with us today. Thank you so much, Dina, for your time and
Thank
your
you.
kind words. And we're feeling blessed, and we feel that the light has shown us the way we need to relook at the nature today, reshape our thoughts. And the way you do your nature photography, we need to change the lens from I, me, myself to we and togetherness. Let's be together with nature. So I leave all of you with the thought, and definitely do check the website, Whispering Wilds, and you can read a lot about Dina and the work and the beautiful stuff that she's doing. Thank you so much, Dina. God
Thank
bless.
you.
And